I like how we vibing. I like how we vibing. Yeah. I like how we vibing. Yeah. I like how we vibing. I like how we vibing.
Welcome to the Compliance Clinic. I know it's been a while since we gave you any content, but we're back and we're going to try and be regular with it. So for those who are new, on Wednesdays we talk about estate planning, and on Thursday we do text talk, and on Fridays we do Friday facts. And this week's estate planning video is about setting up a trust. And we're going to do an introduction to setting up a trust, and this is what today's program is looking like. We're going to do an introduction about a trust, a brief background about a trust and the different types of trusts, and then we're going to do steps that are necessary or you should consider when setting up a trust. Then we're going to do benefits of a trust and drawbacks of a trust, as well as give you guys a conclusion. Let us get started with the introduction or the background of a trust. A trust is a legal arrangement in which trustees hold and manage assets on behalf of a beneficiary of beneficiaries. So you would appoint a trustee to hold or manage the asset, the trust on behalf of, let's say, your kids. That's basically what it is. And trusts have been used for centuries to protect, distribute assets, as well as provide for loved ones and support charitable causes. Some people set up trusts to actually say, when I pass away, I want my trust to support my favorite charitable organization until the end of time. So that's what support charitable or causes could be. They serve a range of purposes, which include estate planning Wednesday, asset protection, and tax planning, Tax Talk Thursday. Due to the complexity of trusts, it is essential to engage the service of a qualified lawyer and financial advisor to establish and manage them. Hey, Compliance Clinic can help there. Trusts are governed by state laws or government laws, and they can be quite intricate, legal instruments. So getting the right advice is necessary when you are setting this up. Let us look at the steps that one would have to take consider when setting up a trust. You need to define the purpose and the beneficiaries of the trust. So you'd first have to identify why are you doing the trust and who are you doing it for. But first things is like why. So you could be doing it to provide education for your children, manage assets on behalf of your kids who are minors, provide for the care of a disabled family member, because you can't do it when you're dead, so you sort of throw everything into a trust to make sure that disabled family member is taken care of. Then you determine the beneficiaries of the trust, such as family members, friends, or charitable organization. It's all up to you, and then you choose the type of trust. Research the different types of trust, such as the revocable trust, irrevocable trust, living trust, or testamentary trust. I think we spoke about the different trusts in the previous video. Just go back and look at our estate planning Wednesday or Will Wednesday. I think one of those Wednesdays we did. But basically, these are the different trusts one can look at, and most people know the one that they set up when they die, and then they just get whoever's administering the estate to transfer the assets into the trust. But a living trust is also quite popular. It's one of those trusts where you create while you're still alive, and then you just put assets into it and you protect your assets like that. And also for tax planning purposes, they're quite good for tax planning purposes. So once you've researched the different types of taxes that are available, trusts that are available to you, you choose the type of trust that you want. So you'll choose the one that actually serves your needs or the needs of the beneficiaries. The next step is choosing trustees. You can select a trustworthy, reliable trustee who has the necessary expertise to manage the trust's assets. So most of the time, a lawyer or an accountant are best people to actually go with because they understand the law as well as the financial implications involved in a trust and assets that could get put into a trust. So then once you've selected your trustees, you then appoint. You appoint them, or you can consider appointing a corporate trustee such as a bank or trust companies. A lot of the time people get wills with banks and then the banks manage the estate when they pass away. So that's one of the options that some people have, or law firms that just specifically deal with trust. They manage people's trust. So then there will be a trust company. If you don't have a suitable individual that is readily available to actually assist you with being a trustee, so you can actually just go to a bank, say, look, when I pass away, this is what I want to do, this is who I want to be my trustee, and then you appoint them if you want. So you can do that. Then you draft the trust documents. So you will draft a legally binding document that outlines the purpose of the trust, the beneficiaries, the assets to be included in the trust, the trustee's duties and powers, and the distribution of the trust asset. So basically, you somewhat putting limitations on each party's role as well as what the assets can be used for and what assets can be put in there. So it's a good document to have. And then you must ensure that the trust document accurately reflects your intention as the trust creator, because you don't want to create a trust and then it doesn't serve the purpose you wanted. So that's not what you do. Then you fund the trust. You transfer assets into the trust, such as a real estate, investment, and other assets. Then you must ensure that all those assets are properly titled and transferred. Because sometimes you can have assets that you say they belong to a trust, but you haven't really done the proper document to transfer them into the trust, And finally, the last two steps is you review and update the trust. You can regularly review the trust to ensure that it continues to meet the needs of the beneficiaries and the purpose of which it was originally created for. And then make any necessary update or changes to the trust document as circumstances change over time. We all know that because we've been through a pandemic and we are now living through a recession. So circumstances genuinely do change over time. Most importantly, seek legal and financial advice. So consult with the qualified lawyer or accountant or financial advisor to ensure that the trust is structured properly and that all the necessary legal requirements are met. Like actually, if you need to go to the court and actually register it with the courts, then you make sure that that step is met. So seeking professional advice before making any major decisions or changes to the trust is very important. So those are basically the steps that one would have to take, when it comes to creating a trust. And then, why would you actually set up a trust? What are the benefits to actually setting up a trust? The first one is asset protection. A trust can protect your assets from creditors, lawsuits, and other potential risks. By placing assets in a trust, they are held separately from individuals' assets. So they're held separately from your assets, and it would be very difficult for creditors to actually come after those assets because they're not necessarily linked to you. They're linked to the trust. So For asset protection, a trust is a very good idea. Estate planning. A trust can be an effective estate planning tool, helping to ensure that the assets are distributed according to the trust creator's wishes. So in this case, it would be you. A trust can also help to avoid probate processes, which can be time consuming and expensive. So, you've planned, you die, something happens, the trust is there. It takes care of everything. You don't have to worry about, well, you'll be dead, but I mean, you don't have to worry about your family being taken care of when you pass away. So you're good. Tax planning. A trust can help to reduce tax liabilities by minimizing estate and gifts taxes. Depending on the type of trust, it may be possible to transfer assets to beneficiaries without incurring significant tax consequences. I know that in South Africa, um, you can transfer or donate a certain amount and without incurring donations tax, So you can start transferring to a trust using that angle. That way, when you pass away, the amount of taxes you pay are very little. So, from a tax planning perspective, it's a very good tool to have while you're still alive, as well as when you pass away, because you can actually structure it so well that you don't have to worry about the taxes on that side. But obviously, you have to pay taxes, man. So, don't do anything that's illegal. Make sure you pay your taxes. The next one is privacy. Unlike a will, which becomes a matter of public records, you know that your will actually becomes public records of, by the way. A trust can actually maintain privacy to keep details of trust and its assets confidential. So you can actually keep your assets confidential. So if you've got that Lamborghini that you don't want your village people to know about, you know, put it in there and yeah, you'll be good. Anyway, control. A trust can give the trust creator greater control over how their assets are managed and distributed. For example, a trust can include provision for how assets are to be used for the benefits of minor children, disabled family members, or other beneficiaries. You can literally say, this property will be used solely for paying for my kids' school fees. The money that comes from the rental income that comes from this property will be used for paying for the kids' school fees. And that's all it does, rather than having it do other things, that this is what's going to happen. It's for the benefit of so and so, in what sense. So it's a good way of controlling what can what those assets can be used for, you know what I mean? And flexibility. A trust can be tailored to meet the specific needs and circumstance of the trust creator as well as the beneficiaries. Trusts can be designed to include specific instructions for how assets are to be used, distributed, or managed. Continuity. A trust can provide continuity of asset management, distribution in the event of the trust creator's death or incapacity. It can continue. You can even put it that, once my kids reach a certain age, they no longer form part of the trust. My grandkids will be part of the trust. So you sort of create rules to keep that trust going. And that's how you're finding that a lot of these rich families have been able to have trust fund babies for generations, because each trust has conditions that help it continue and grow rather than it ending with the one generation. It continues. So yeah, the trust can continue to operate under the direction of the trustee, ensuring that the assets are managed and distributed according to the trust creator's wishes. So these are some good benefits, man. But like every good thing, there's always one or two bad things. So, what are the drawbacks? Complexity. Setting up a trust can be a complex process, actually. Sometimes you need, well, not sometimes, most of the time, you need assistance of a lawyer or a qualified financial advisor. There may also be an ongoing administration task, such as filing taxes, and managing the trust assets. That can add to how complex a trust can be. Managing the trust can be. The cost, it is not cheap. Establishing and managing a trust can be expensive, as it may require legal and financial advice and ongoing administration costs or administrative costs and trustees' fees. The cost can erode the value of the assets held in the trust over time. So it's always a good idea to put in assets that are going to generate serious revenue, so that you can pay for these costs, because they do rack up. Lack of flexibility. Once assets are placed in a trust, it can be difficult to change or remove assets from the trust. It's one of those things that it's going to be very difficult to reverse, so you must be sure about. Depending on the type of the trust may also limit the flexibility of the trust creator to use the asset in a way that they would like. So you can sometimes put your vehicle in there and say, 1, 2, 3, this vehicle must be used for transporting the kids. And then you put it in there while you're still alive, thinking that, no, I'm still going to use it. No, the trust said specifically for the use of the kids' transportation. You're not a kid, you're not a beneficiary anymore. So, so those are some of the things that you'll have to look into. Loss of control, once again. By placing the assets in a trust, the trust creator may give up some degree of control over these assets or those assets. The trustee is responsible for managing the assets according to the terms of the trust. And very important, according to the terms of the trust, which may not always align with the trust creator's wishes. You may do something thinking it's a good idea, but then you realize that you're shooting yourself in the foot. So always be sure about what you're doing, man. Legal challenges. Depending on the circumstances and the terms of the trust, there may be legal challenges to the validity or administration of the trust. This can lead to additional legal costs and delays in distributing assets to the beneficiaries. So be sure to consult, guys, especially regarding this legal aspect of it, because you'll find that people will come back and say, no, that asset shouldn't have been distributed to the trust. We are married in community of property. This asset was, you know what I mean? Things like that. Discuss with a legal advisor before you go too far with this trust story. You know what I mean? Conclusion. When considering setting up a trust, it is essential to weigh the potential benefit against the associated costs and risks. Seeking advice from a qualified lawyer and a financial advisor can help ensure that the trust is tailored to meet the individual's specific circumstances and goals. They can also provide guidance on selecting the appropriate type of trust, funding the trust, selecting the trustees, and establishing a clear plan for the trust's management and distribution of assets. Regular review of the trust and its assets and its beneficiary can help to ensure that the trust continues to meet its intended purposes and goals. Very important. Regular reviewing. By carefully considering the advantages and disadvantages and seeking professional advice, you as the individual can make informed decision whether a trust is the right choice for your specific circumstances. It's very important to consider this. Legal advice, very important before you go and pull the trigger on setting up a trust. It's a great idea, but if it ends up costing you more than what it's worth, then it's pointless. But it's a great idea. Anyway, thank you for tuning into today's estate planning Wednesday. You can get a hold of us via email as usual on connect@mcponline.co.za. You can check us out on social media, the Com Clinic, the Compliance Clinic. That's on Twitter, Instagram, and then Twitter, the Com Clinic, ZA. We are all over social media, but most importantly, man, just follow, like, check out our blog, or our website, which is mcponline.co.za, just for more content like this. And obviously, if you're looking at this on you actually listening to this via a podcast, then subscribe to that podcast. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to that YouTube channel, man. Anyway, love, peace, and prosperity from your favorite practitioner.